Welcome to We Don't Have Cookies with your host, Jason Marshall.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. It's only a couple of weeks into the new year, and I couldn't think of a better time to put out this episode. It has to do with a man that I would have liked to have on the Guests of Cookies Past episode last month, but he didn't respond to my personal email. That's a big hint for long-time listeners. He's one of the most unique guests I've ever had on the podcast, and one of the most fascinating people that I've ever met. He goes by the stage name Father Time. He hasn't been on the podcast since November 2015, but he's been a topic of conversation ever since. He first caught my attention on Facebook, where he would post colorful, misspelled posts or comments on comedians' walls or in group pages, and he would do it repeatedly throughout the day, and that was enough for me. I knew I had to meet this guy. The first time I saw him in person was in the lobby at the radio station where I used to co-host a show. He was there with his wife and with his manager, Mike Canistero, who was going to be a guest on that show too. He's an elderly man with a very endearing stutter. He was all dressed up in a three-piece suit with a matching hat and a lot of gold jewelry. A man who gets dressed up from head to toe to appear on the radio had me more intrigued than ever, and I knew I was in for a good time. Here's a clip from that episode called Father Time's Poop Show, where he talks about how he got the stage name Father Time.
Well, see, the very first time I did comedy, it was at Funny Bone over in Petersburg, and a girl there, it's 8 years old. Well, she goes on first, and I had to follow her. Well, the guy who came on after me, very sarcastic, says, "I can't believe I had to follow a little girl and Father Time." Where the guy, this man did not get any laughs at all. I mean, maybe a giggle or two. I mean, you guys are laughing harder than the audience did. I got a ton of laughs. I mean, I just got reeled into comedy, just like somebody who just caught a big fish. Okay, you know, and so on the way home, my wife and I were talking, and we decided that comedy, that Father Time, it's a good name for me because of my age and stuff, and I'm the oldest one doing it. So now I also, bring in a lot of old age jokes into the thing, and really having a lot of fun.
I gotta ask, you said an 8-year-old, right?
Yes, her dad works there, so she goes on first. And then the MC keeps it somewhat clean until her mom puts her coat on and gets her out of there.
Now, how did that 8-year-old set go?
She's good. The only thing is, now she tells jokes that I don't think she's old enough to understand anything she's saying. Now, if she is able to, and she was my granddaughter, she would sit down for a week.
Gotcha. And why was that episode called Father Time's Poop Show? Here's why.
Welcome back to Father Time's Poop Show. Here I sit. I'll let you finish the rest of it.
I liked him so much that I brought him back to do the very next episode of the podcast, which was a first. Another first was when he told a story that was so shocking, I didn't even know what to say, but was so intrigued that I couldn't move on to my next topic without asking a few questions.
A long time ago when I was single, there was a time, that I was going to go to school to be a mortician. And my dad talked me out of it because he was working for one and told me stories. Anyway, every girl that I met told me that if you were a mortician, I would not go out with you. And I said, why not? She says, because you would measure me, for a casket with your eyes. Okay, and a girl, told me a story that a mortician could not make love to a woman unless she was packed in ice and got in her bathtub, because he was used to making love to all these dead women at the funeral home.
Wow, that's disturbing.
Somebody I knew up in Detroit. So anyway, anybody I was dating, told me if I found out that you were a mortician, I would not go out with you. Okay. My wife, said last week that she were thought twice about her and I hooking up if I was a mortician.
Well, a slightly less creepy person out there besides the guy who was... Well, what'd you say he was doing? Having his wife, you just talked about it. He said he was having sex with so many people in the funeral home that...
Yeah, okay. And the only way he could make love to a woman, okay, who was alive, is if she was in a bathtub full of ice, because he was making love to all these dead women.
Okay, I had another story, but we're just going to get into this. How did I not follow up on this?
True story from a woman that I used to date up in the Detroit area.
I believe you. I'm just fascinated with this. I can't move on to another story.
Time, I was seriously thinking of being a mortician, so I was would talk to girls and ask them, "How do you feel about morticians, and would you consider going out with me if I was one?" And they all said no.
But I got to go back to that guy with the bathtub thing.
Yeah.
Would he make love in the bathtub, or did they just have to be in there to get cold? What is going on with that? That is so bizarre.
He would make love to her in the bathtub full of ice, because she would have to be as cold as the actual dead body.
But
yeah.
So he would be in the tub with the woman.
Right. And she's laying there with the bathtub at least half full of ice, so she could be cold. So it'd be almost the same thing as making love to a corpse.
And he's not in jail, right? He's a free person.
As far as I know, I don't know.
Okay.
I did not know the guy. Okay.
Can you get him on the show?
I said, I don't know him. I don't know who he is.
Damn.
This is just something that a girl that I used to date around 30 some odd years ago told me.
So she was in the bathtub?
No.
Oh, okay.
She just told me a story that she heard about a guy that was a mortician. So she said she would never date me if I was a mortician, because maybe I would want her to be in a bathtub full of ice. And I'm like, are you crazy?
Okay. I thought the guy was somebody that you knew before.
I could not make love to a corpse. I don't care if she was not down gorgeous. Okay. I could not make love to a corpse.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think pretty much everybody listening can agree to that.
I mean, I am known as Father Time because that's my stage name, but I mean, I'm totally weird that I would make love to a dead person. Okay.
If you listen back, you can hear him in the beginning say that was a true story. I was very disappointed when he admitted that it was an urban legend, but I was also somewhat relieved that there wasn't a person like that actually out there. That wasn't the only time sex came up, though, and the thing that made it even more awkward was the fact that his wife was with him every time he was on the show. Here is what may be the most awkward I have ever felt on the podcast.
The other day, I saw something on a shelf that is called Mr. Big Tree. You're supposed to put it on your dick to make your dick bigger. Wouldn't that make your hands bigger too?
It should. Yeah. Or at least one of them.
And I always say, thank God for Viagra. It keeps me from pissing on my shoes. And my wife, came up with one, because of her age, her bra size went from a 36B to a 36 long. Old age is a bitch.
Well, it's one of the Facebook questions, and I promised everybody I would read the questions no matter what they were, and I think this was more to screw with me than to actually get an answer. What is your favorite sexual position? Feel free to say pass.
Well, actually, it's the only one I could do, and that is my wife laying on the bed and I'm standing up. Because at my age, I can't do too many push-ups, but I can still chin.
I want to thank the asshole that gave me that question. Once he talked about somebody posting porn on his Facebook page and was really upset about it ruining his reputation as a comedian.
You can't see the person's face. So as far as they know, it could be me and a girlfriend, me and my wife, whoever, because that's all you see is sexual parts and people's behinds. So maybe, they might think the guy in the video is me. Well, I don't need that.
Right.
They would show a face. Well, everybody don't know what I look like, so I'm still screwed, so I found a way to get her off, and now I am constantly checking my my page just to see what's there.
I still find it hard to believe that anybody would think that the porn on his Facebook page was of him, but he was convinced people would. Maybe it was somebody standing up with a woman on the bed, who knows? But according to him, he's used to being called a dirty old man.
People say I'm a dirty old man because I was a shit fuck. I say shit and fuck because people do. And to me, fuck is not a dirty word unless you don't wash up afterwards. If it was God who invented fucking. If it wasn't for fucking, none of us could be here.
Cursing isn't the only criticism he's heard before. According to him, he's been threatened by headlining comedians during their set because they didn't like the fact that he was funnier than they are. I heard a story where there was a headliner on stage. You went up, obviously, before him. That's why he's a headliner.
Right.
The headliners always go on last. He said something on stage about how you were funnier than him and he should punch you in the face or something along those lines.
That happened at 3 separate occasions at 3 different clubs.
3 different ones?
Yes, where I remember one guy, at a club here in Dayton says, why he was doing his routine, he says, I think I need to kick Father Times' ass because he's funnier than I am, and I'm getting paid, and he's not because he's just doing open mic.
Now, before you go any further, I have to ask, that was on stage, right? Or am I getting the story wrong?
He was on stage, and I was just in the audience.
And he said that while he was on stage?
Yes.
Okay.
And
that just seems a very strange thing for somebody to do on stage, so I've never heard that before.
I think he got maybe about 2-3 giggles, and nobody really thought it was funny. Yeah. And that also happened at 2 other places, where someone said, I need to beat the crap out of Father Time because he's just funnier than I am. And I'm like, what's your problem? See, and I think these people are basically, trying to get my goat and trying to get me to stand up and say, hey, you so-and-so, cuss them out and that kind of stuff. And when we go there and say, if you think you can punch my lights out, here I am. I just sat there in the audience and kept my mouth shut. And when I saw him afterwards, I says, you did a nice job. I really enjoyed your show. Basically just to piss him off.
Yeah, I was going to ask how that went when you said that you saw him after the show afterwards. I was wondering how that would go down because I never really thought it was very strange that they would say that up on the stage because I've never heard anybody do that before, but I never really thought of of the perspective of them trying to rile you up to where you get on stage to make it kind of part of their bit or something.
I think maybe,
that makes sense.
Yeah, well, see, I thought, yes, because, see, I think maybe they were trying to do that, okay, just to get me mad, so I would walk up to the stage and say, hey, you think you're that tough? Here I am, because I have worked with people a long time ago who are exactly that way. There's people that will try to bait you and get your goat because they think it's funny. And it is not funny, but what you got to do is just overlook it.
Despite critics saying that he's too funny, Father Time looked to the future.
What I would like to do, and I have already written to Pandy about this, is after Pandy and I do our own show at Kids Lounge, okay, if me and Pandy could go and do something together, be like a Abbott and Costello kind of thing.
That'd be interesting, yeah.
Only now I have to get Mike to talk to Pandy, because I wrote Pandy and did not get a answer. So I need to ask Mike to sit down with Pandy, and we can work out something on the emails, our own personal private emails, so we have all the jokes down pat.
Unfortunately, that routine with another former guest on the podcast, Pandy Kaufman, did not work out. For those who don't know about Pandy Kaufman, it's a character by Mike Canistero where he dresses up in a panda costume and does stand-up. I like the idea Father Time had of them teaming up together. I think it would have been pretty fun to watch. I also like the idea of him in a comedy duo with his wife. They were always together anyway, and she was really funny too. Here's her first appearance on the show.
I am very, very clumsy. In fact, she's got a nickname for me. It's like something.
Bumbleardy.
Bumbleardy, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do call him, among other things.
I hope you heard that.
He's also my own personal hemorrhoid.
And that she tells the doctors, that she has her hemorrhoid right here. Now, a funny story about me being clumsy, is a while back, shortly after I first started doing comedy, I got carried away and I fell off the stage. I'm not making this up. I did not get hurt. I just had a cut on my nose and ended up with 2 black eyes.
Oh.
And my wife teased me for a week that I looked like a negative raccoon. Now, there was 2 doctors in the audience, and I was taken in a back room to be checked out. Well, this doctor was checking me out, so well, first of all, my wife says the reason why you didn't get hurt is because you fell on your head. You can't hurt something that doesn't have anything in it. If you would have fell on your ass, you'd be in serious trouble, because that's where your brains are. Every time you fart, you get dumber.
She might not tell jokes or perform with him on stage, but they do make a great comedy duo in real life.
We were once in the doctor's office, and when the room was packed, this lady came out and she wanted her coat. I was smashed up against the coat rack, and she says, I don't want to accidentally hit you in the head with the hanger. My wife says, it wouldn't matter because you don't have nothing you could hurt. And everybody was cracking up. I used it that night at the comedy show and got laughs. A lot of guys would get pissed off over it, especially saying that in public in front of people that we see all the time. But I figured, hey, I'm going to use this.
It's funny.
Yeah. She just says that things just hit her. I wish that would happen with her on stage, because we could be another Gracie Allen and George Burns.
That'd be really good stuff.
I would never have gotten into comedy if I did not marry this woman. And I mean that in a very good way. She's just saying she hoped God forgives her.
I got a feeling he won't. At the beginning of the episode, I said that Father Time told a story that really shocked me, but I also shocked him too. Before we go, you mentioned something on the radio about your lack of smell.
Oh, yes.
You said something about how somebody could be standing over you. You could be lying down, somebody could stand over you naked and fart, and you'd never smell it. You just know because of the wind. So when we go to break, we're going to test that theory. And I just want to think.
You're going to actually test that theory?
Oh, why not? It's we'll have that video up here soon.
Okay.
And before we go to break,
I've tried anything once.
For somebody who has only been on a few times, the man has left a lasting impression on the podcast like very few others. Even though he hasn't been on the show since November of 2015, he's been a regular topic of conversation over the past few years. He was the main topic of conversation on at least 3 podcast episodes. There was an episode with a character called Uncle Eon that Mike Canistero came up with based on Father Time, and I did somebody else's podcast where I played the role of Father Time in an improv sketch. I really liked Father Time. I always thought he was a very interesting character. I even wanted to add him as a rotating regular guest and tried to think of a segment for him to do. Despite being a nice guy, he tends to go a little overboard from time to time. Okay, pretty much all the time. And that led to him being the first guest to ever be banned from the podcast. I did send him an email to be on the show in December, but I never heard back from him. But I am going to try to have him on sometime in 2018. See how it goes. That's it for this episode. Thanks for downloading the show. I'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about all the fun we had and leave a review. See you next time.
Coffee is supposed to be hot. I could not make love to a corpse.
How dare Father Time? How dare he? Wow.